Imagine, like, you're right on the verge of releasing this awesome new product, right? But then, bam, your competitor beats you to the punch. And it's not just a copycat. It's like they took your idea and made it even better.
Oof. Yeah, that's the stuff of nightmares for any business owner.
Totally. But what if you could have seen it coming?
Now that would be a game changer.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today with these insights from GroupBWT. It's all about web scraping, not just the how-to, but the why. We're talking about understanding why this is so valuable for businesses.
Absolutely. Because it's not just about grabbing random data, it's about finding those hidden gems, those crucial pieces of information that can give you a real edge.
Like that competitor scenario,
Yeah.
right? Web scraping could be your secret weapon to, like, anticipate those moves.
It's like having eyes everywhere. Your competitors, your customers, the whole market. It's all out there, just waiting to be understood.
It's like having this constant stream of intel,
Yeah.
right? You can see what your competitors are up to, how customers are reacting to trends, even what's bubbling up before it hits the mainstream.
And that's the thing, it's not just about reacting anymore, it's about anticipating. And web scraping gives you that power.
Okay, so we've thrown around web scraping a few times now.
Yeah.
Just to be sure we're all on the same page, what are we actually talking about here?
So, in a nutshell, web scraping is like having an army of digital assistants, right? They comb through the web, pull out the exact data you need, and then organize it in a way that you can actually use.
Okay, that sounds pretty heady, but give us an example. What kind of data are we talking about here?
Oh, it could be anything. Pricing information on your competitors' products, customer reviews scattered across a dozen different websites, social media trends, even mentions of your brand in online forums.
Whoa, okay, so it's getting pretty granular.
Yeah.
And you're saying I can't just, like, Google this stuff?
Well, you could try, but think about how much time that would take. We're talking about massive amounts of data, constantly changing. Web scraping automates that whole process so you can focus on actually using the insights.
Right, because what good is a mountain of data if you're just drowning in it? You need a way to sift through it and find the gold nuggets.
Exactly. And one of the best examples of this is the work Group BWT did with this large manufacturer.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
So this manufacturer, they thought they were doing pretty well, you know. Their products were selling, their average star ratings were decent. But then they brought in Group BWT to do a deep dive.
And what did they find?
Well, through custom web scraping, they were able to analyze thousands of product reviews across the entire web, not just on their own site. And what they discovered was this cluster of negative reviews, all concentrated on one specific retailer's website.
Interesting. So it wasn't just about the overall sentiment, but finding those hidden pockets of negativity.
Exactly. And those negative reviews, even though they were just on one site, they were tanking the manufacturer's overall search ranking. Customers were seeing those bad reviews first and getting the wrong impression.
Wow. So one little data point hidden in plain sight can have a huge impact.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of web scraping. It's like having a microscope that can zoom in on the tiniest details, even when they're buried under mountains of other information.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the appeal here.
Yeah.
But how does a company actually get started with this? Is it super technical? Do you need, like, a whole team of data scientists?
It can be technical, for sure, but it doesn't have to be. There are different approaches depending on your needs and resources.
All right, well, let's break those down then. What are our options?
So you've got two main paths. You can either go with web scraping as a service, or you can invest in a custom solution.
Okay, so it's like choosing between, like, ordering takeout or, I don't know, hiring a personal chef.
Huh. That's actually a pretty good analogy.
Okay, I'm kind of proud of that one. But seriously, what's the difference? When would you choose one over the other?
Well, let's start with web scraping as a service. Think of it like subscribing to a curated data feed. You get access to a platform, pre-built tools, maybe even some pre-selected data sets.
So it's like, they've already done some of the heavy lifting for you.
Exactly. And that can be a great option if you're just starting out, or you have more general data needs. It's often more cost effective, and you don't need a ton of technical expertise to get started.
Okay, sounds pretty convenient. So what's the catch?
Well, the trade-off is that you're limited to what they offer. You might not get the exact data points you need or the level of customization you're looking for.
Makes sense. So if you need something really specific, that's where custom solutions come in.
Exactly. With a custom solution, you're essentially building your own data powerhouse. You define the data points you want, the sources you want to scrape from, the frequency of updates. Everything is tailored to your exact needs.
Wow, okay. So it's like having a custom-made suit versus buying one off the rack.
Exactly. It's a bigger investment for sure, but it gives you ultimate control and flexibility. And that can be a game changer in today's data-driven world.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty of choosing the right solution, let's talk about some real-world examples. Where are we seeing this granular data make a real difference?
Oh, one area where it's incredibly impactful is in the telecom industry. GroupBWT actually did some really interesting work. There are two major telecom players in Germany.
Oh yeah, I think I read about that. They were using web scraping to get a leg up in the battle for like gigabit internet coverage, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that information already like publicly available though?
Well, some of it was, sure. But here's the thing, they weren't just looking at like advertised speeds and those fancy coverage maps. They were getting granular.
Granular how? Give me the details.
They were scraping user forums, looking for real customer experiences, complaints, speed tests, all that juicy stuff. They even scraped local news reports to see what people were saying about the actual rollout in different areas.
Hold on. So you're telling me this telecom company could actually anticipate where problems might pop up even before they launched in a new area?
Exactly. They could see if people were having issues with speeds, coverage, customer service, you name it. And because they were scraping data in real time, they could address those issues proactively.
That's next level strategy.
Yeah.
And talk about staying ahead of the competition. I bet their marketing team loved having that kind of intel too.
Oh, absolutely. They could directly compare their performance to their competitors, but not just based on marketing hype. We're talking about real-world data from real customers.
So it's about going beyond those surface level metrics and getting a real feel for what's actually happening out there.
Precisely. That level of granularity is a game changer, and it really highlights the power of custom web scraping solutions.
Because they needed data that was specific to their market, their goals, something they couldn't just get off the shelf, right?
Exactly. They needed a custom-built solution that could adapt to their specific needs. And that's what gave them a real competitive edge.
Okay, so we've got custom solutions, which are like building your own data powerhouse.
Yeah.
And we've got web scraping as a service, which is more like subscribing to a curated data feed. Both have their pros and cons. But how does a company decide which path is right for them? That's what we're diving into next. So custom solutions, they're like the ultimate data deep dive.
For sure, for sure. You get that total control, that flexibility.
But it's a big decision, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just about the tech itself.
Oh, absolutely not. It's about weaving those data insights into how your whole business runs.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's something that GroupBWT, they really seem to get that.
Totally. They're all about being your data partner, not just some vendor you hired. They actually work with you, figure out your specific challenges. Then they design a solution that fits.
And most importantly, I'm guessing, they actually make sure you can use the data. Because, I mean, what good is all that data if you don't know what to do with it?
It's like having a Lamborghini but not knowing how to drive stick. What's the point?
Right. GroupBWT, that data is only as valuable as your ability to, like, actually do something with it.
Yeah.
So how do they make sure that happens?
Well, they're really flexible with how they deliver the data. It can be something as simple as a spreadsheet, or they can do these direct API integrations, plugging that data straight into your existing workflows, whatever works best for you.
Okay, so they're all about collaboration, bespoke solutions, making the data work for you. But like all this talk about scraping the web, it does make you think about the ethics of it all, right?
Yeah, no, it's a super important consideration. Just because something's publicly available doesn't mean you can use it however you want.
Right. It's not a free-for-all. What are some of the things people should be thinking about?
Yeah.
How do you make sure you're scraping and using data responsibly?
A big thing is transparency and having a clear purpose. Like reputable providers like GroupBWT, they actually build compliance right into how they do things, making sure they're following all those regulations like GDPR.
GDPR, that's the one about protecting people's personal data, right?
Yeah.
But how does that work with like web scraping? Especially if you're scraping stuff like, I don't know, product reviews or what people are saying in forums.
It's about being respectful with the data, right? So like if you're scraping those customer reviews, you can't go around tying them back to specific people without their permission.
That makes sense. So using that data to improve your product, that's one thing. But then like selling it to some marketing company so they can send targeted ads, that's a whole other story.
Exactly. You need to have a legitimate reason for using the data, and you got to handle it responsibly.
Be a good data citizen.
Exactly. And, we've been focusing on custom solutions, but I do want to mention Web scraping as a service, it can be a really good starting point for businesses that are just kind of dipping their toes in.
Yeah, test the waters before you, like dive in head first.
Yeah.
So for our listener who's thinking, okay, this is all super interesting, but where do I even begin? What's the first step they should take?
It always comes back to understanding your needs, right? Like, what are the biggest unanswered questions in your business right now? What's keeping you up at night?
What are those pain points? Those if only I knew
Yeah.
moments, right?
Exactly. Once you know what you want to figure out, then you can think about what kind of data would actually help you get there.
So is it product reviews,
Yeah.
social media chatter, or something even more niche?
Right. And think about the scale. Are we talking about just scooping up info from a handful of websites, or are we casting a wider net? That's going to influence whether you can get away with something off the shelf or if you need a custom solution.
Right, because it's like choosing the right fishing net, right? You wouldn't use a deep sea trawler to catch trout in a stream.
Love the analogy. And don't forget about how often you need this data. Real-time updates, daily snapshots, or something in between.
It all factors in. Okay, so you figured out what you need. What's next?
Then it's time to take stock. Look inwards. Do you have a tech team that can handle building and managing a custom solution? Or would it be smarter, maybe even cheaper, to bring in some experts?
Because even if you've got a tech team, they might not have the bandwidth or the specific skills for something as like specialized as web scraping. And their time is precious, right? Maybe it's better to let them focus on what they're best at and outsource this part.
100%. All right, so you've got a handle on your needs. You've looked at your own capabilities. What's the next step?
Time to start shopping around. Right. See what's out there.
Exactly. But don't just go with the first name that pops up on Google. Take your time, do your research. This is a big decision. We're talking about your data, your business.
It's like due diligence, right? Really kicking the tires before you like sign on the dotted line.
For sure. And you know what's super helpful for that? Case studies. Seeing how they've tackled problems just like yours in your industry, that's gold.
Yeah, it's like checking out their portfolio, right? Before you hire them for the big project, you want to see what they're capable of.
Exactly. And don't be shy about asking for references either. Talk to some of their other clients. See what their experience has been like.
Word of mouth is huge, especially when it comes to something as, I don't know, niche as web scraping.
For sure. And when you do have those consultations, be ready, have your specific needs and challenges laid out. Don't be afraid to really grill them.
Yeah, it's got to be the right fit. Not just like technically, but also their whole vibe. You want someone who gets your business, not just some tech wizard who throws data over the wall and disappears.
Well said. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here today, from the big picture advantages of web scraping to the nuts and bolts of actually choosing the right solution.
So for our listener who's now like, all right, I'm sold, I need to get me some of this data magic.
Yeah.
What's the key takeaway? What's the one thing they can do today to get started?
Honestly, don't overthink it. Don't let the data intimidate you. Whether you're a small shop just starting out or a big corporation, web scraping, it can level the playing field. It can help you find opportunities, make smarter decisions.
Become a data refiner, not just a data consumer.
Exactly. Because in a world that's swimming in data, being able to extract real meaning from it, that's a superpower. And with the right tools, the right partners, anyone can have it.
So are you ready to dive into the world of web scraping and unlock those hidden opportunities in your business?
The choice, as always, is yours.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the incredible world of web scraping. A huge thanks to GroupBWT for providing such insightful source material for today's conversation. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the data that matters.